Welcome to the Colosseum. You are but a man. You are here to face monsters and demons. Will you survive or perish like the others before you? That's right, we're playing Hippodrome here on First or Flop, the show in which we talk about retro video games to find these hidden gems or turds that should just be buried away. This game, made by Data East in 1989, was a 2D fighting game, and it specialized more so in the one versus the computer aspect of the fight, in which you're a mighty warrior facing all these different sorts of enemies, and they all have special abilities, which you don't. But that's besides the point. The game starts off with a selection screen, kind of like at a Mega Man, where you have a choice initially between 3 different champions or monsters. You can select whichever one you want. I will say that they're all kind of difficult, but they do seem to place the enemies in a particular order. Gives you their name and a little bit of stats about what they are and what sort of weapon they have and anything that might end up helping you out. This information is pretty useless for the most part, but it is nice just to have that little bit of bio. The game starts off swinging. You enter the battle and you're just swinging your sword in hopes to make a couple of hits. Unfortunately, they can make many more hits as they are pretty cheap when it comes to how they fight. You have to get used to their patterns, which unfortunately you would not be able to do without knowing the game at all. You come into this game thinking that, hey, it's just another fighting game, but you don't have any special moves. You just have a sword, you have the ability to jump, and you got a couple of different attacks. Normally just standing will do like a forward strike. If you start swinging upwards, you can actually swing over your head for sometimes when enemies jump or when they try to fly. You can also do kind of like a diagonal up as well, which you can hit them in a little bit of a distance. Sometimes you'll go over their head, sometimes you'll hit them. And then you have a ducking stance, which allows you to hit them. You can also have, if you press back and press your attack button, you'll have the ability to block an attack. I haven't found the blocking to be super useful, but I do find that the jumping seems to work really well. Once you defeat an enemy, you start gathering points and gold. Points, of course, is just try to get that high score. Gold, however, is used in the store, in which is between each round. You can purchase a hammer, which looks more like a Morning Star, an axe, a battle axe, a halberd, a potion that increases your max health, and then a pendant that helps you restore life. Once you buy a weapon, once you go to select one of the enemies, you'll have the option to choose it. Each weapon kind of makes sense for different types of enemies. Enemy reacts to the weapons differently. Some of them take more or less damage depending on which weapon you use, and some of them can literally be extra reach. The hammer's really good for extra reach, but it's slow attacking. The sword is kind of in the middle. The axe is very close range, but generally does extra damage. The halberd's definitely the best one, as it has the most reach. It hits for normal damage of seeing what the sword is. Sometimes it does a little bit more. The biggest problem I have with this game is, even though you get to select the different sort of weapons, all the enemies have special attacks. You, however, have none. Even though, yes, makes it very challenging and such, it makes it a very boring 2-player game. When an opponent decides to join, they can only join after you've selected your weapon, which means whatever weapon you've chosen, if another player decides to hop in and play, they're defending with just their sword, and you get to use whatever weapon you chose for the enemy. Dragon armor. I really like the voices in this game. They kind of like Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath. It's kind of funny. When it comes to the Scorpion, he has a very annoying ability that freezes you in place, kind of like a spider's web. It is very annoying. Honestly, I think this one is probably the cheapest of them all. This fight's my favorite. And it is hard, but the voices in this game are hilarious.
Ice storm. Fireball. Acid rain. Acid rain.
It reminds me of like somebody LARPing and like, you know, just go lightning bolts,
Lightning.
acid rain, like it's so funny. The one thing that I'm not too happy about with this game is once you die, you lose all your extra health. So even when you're continuing, go back to just your starting bar. That is very frustrating. See how you spent a lot of gold in order to get that, and you only keep the weapons. Makes the fights really hard afterwards. Luckily, they do keep some damage on the bosses that you're fighting, just to give you a fighting chance, but it's just a quarter sucker at that point. With regards to the graphics, pretty standard 1989. It does have a feel like nowadays, I guess. We look back at this, it feels like that retro art style. Reminds me of that Hero Quest sort of art, which I really dig. It's kind of hard. It's kind of heavy metal, kind of like the way they look here. You know, you got the super buff dudes with like, you know, super massive like biceps and such. And yeah, I really like the art actually, for what it is. The backgrounds do change based on the enemies that you do fight. Some of them repeat with some color palette changes, pretty standard, you know, especially when you have a limited amount of memory. The magic spells that the wizard uses are pretty good animations of them, except for the acid rain. But yeah, I really like the art style for the game. With regards to the music, of course, there's only like a few songs, one for the fight, so it's not much to really kind of talk about. It's not glaringly bad or anything, it's just boring. I'm more impressed with the art style than I am with the music by a long shot. The gameplay is okay. You know, you're jumping around, you're swinging. I do feel like, I guess the only special weapons you have are the different types of weapons. I wish the weapons had their own sort of ways to attack. They all attack the same, so like whether you're using the sword, whether you're using the hammer or the axe, they all have the same attacks. It's just a matter of how much damage you do and what distance, and I guess how fast you can swing them. I guess that's the only other thing. But I really wish there was a bit had its own move sets. That would make it all the weapons more distinguishable between what you would use. The gold aspect and the money aspect, like I said before on my Wanderer review, I really enjoy that. I like the idea that you're like getting the, you know, you're getting money and you're progressing that way. It is a neat addition for sure. This game plays more like a proper, like a one-player arena game. The two-player aspect of this is absolutely terrible. I would not recommend playing two players on this. The one art that I'm not so impressed with, I guess, was more so the dragon. I wish there was a bit more color, as everybody else kind of has a bit more. For style, the dragon is kind of lackluster with regards to the quality of the art. The controls themselves feel a little stiff, but if we're comparing this to other fighting games of the same time, like Street Fighter 2, there's nothing game-changing. This is just a game about a man swinging a sword, trying to kill whatever's in front of him. And honestly, there isn't a lot more to it. To be honest, I'll be rooting for the bad guys if I was in the arena, just because of how much cooler they are. In conclusion, this game is pretty decent. I do like the aspect. There's not many games out there that kind of have an arena style fighting, where the game is more intended for one player than it is for two players. It's not quite a beat 'em up. I do like the classic artwork, and the gameplay itself, while a little bit on the boring side, does offer some challenges. So is this game first or flop? Well, it's definitely not first, and probably not a total flop. I would give this a 3 out of 5. Comment and let me know if this is a game that you played in the arcade. I have not played this in the arcade, but this game was suggested by my friend Mike, who says that he played this game quite a bit. I will say that I probably will have another go at this game at some point. This game was very difficult, and I was unable to complete it. Thank you so much. Like, comment, and subscribe for more of this content. Have yourself a lovely day.